What is something shady going on in your neighborhood? My hood. Neighbors across the street have a loud, dramatic, public breakup on the street whenever they have friends over. Last time he apparently found out she had been talking to some bloke in prison on Instagram. The time before that she found out he was on Tinder. Fortunately this always happens around 8 PM on weekends, so it's not a nuisance. More entertainment. My brother's hood. A guy is dealing drugs near the train station. He rides a tiny dirt bike thing, so whenever the cops come he takes off into the nearby bush. He has fun with it though. Often makes them chase him around in circles. Total mad C. So this is a perfect topic for me because I feel like I've stumbled on a legit conspiracy in my neighborhood. There is large park with a trail and many small parking lots in my neighborhood. I often take my dog there, and I have for several years now. It is very common to go there late morning or early afternoon on a weekday and see someone sitting in their car in one of the little parking lots, doing nothing. It could be a man or a woman, anywhere from 30-60 years of age, alone in their car. They will remain in that spot for a long while, then drive to another spot and continue to sit, sometimes for hours. They always face the road that loops through the park and connects the parking lots. They never face toward the park, always the road. I see it about 2-3 times a week. I casually asked park police about it one day, and he said he recognized it as well and has asked them at times what they are doing. But their answers are innocent, so he has no idea what's going on. Once there was a guy who was sitting in his car for 20 minutes when another guy pulled into the lot and sat there for 15 minutes or so. The first guy got up and went into the bathroom, and 10 minutes later the first guy got up and went in. They were in there for about 20 minutes at least. I never saw them come out. My best guess was that it was an anonymous sex rendezvous, but like I said, it's people of all ages and genders doing this, and they usually never get out of their cars. The conspiracy theorist in me suspects it's a meetup spot for spies and their handlers, since this is right outside DC. But I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist. Still shady though. Honestly, a sex hookup seems like better cover for spy crap than parking around the same place conspicuously. My parents live in a conservative neighborhood full of elderly people who have lived there for decades. One of the neighbors retired to Florida and a biker gang bought the house and use it as a beating place. My parents think it's hilarious, but the other neighbors are horrified. It's in the gang's best interest to keep crime rates low in your neighborhood. If there's ever any retaliation from a rival gang, then you're in trouble. Source: grew up near a biker gang territory. At first people liked when La Familia came to town because petty crime went down. Then people realized there's still a gang and vigilante justice isn't always great either. My neighbors erected a massive flagpole and each day they put a new flag up there. I can't for the life of me figure out why, but they're either bored or it's for nefarious purposes that I am not perceptive enough to figure out. Also, 2 kangaroos had a fight on my road last week. Wondering if they're somehow involved in the flag shenanigans. Every post by Australians. Stupid foreigners thinking we ride kangaroos. Also every post by Australians. Kangaroo street fights. I live in a small town where hardly anything ever happens, but almost every single night I hear screaming or some other random sounds coming from somewhere around my neighborhood. I have no idea what is going on and I don't want to know. Foxes having sexy fun time, or rabbits being eaten, or both. Houses rented out but nobody lives there. Once a month or so 2 really nice German sports cars with privacy tinting pull into the garage for a couple of hours and then leave. I'm fairly certain that the church down the street is actually a cult. I've never seen a Christian ceremony where they march down the street chanting every month like they do. Also, they are very inconsiderate, not giving those in the neighborhood any warning that they are going to be doing this. It has caused me to be late for work before, and I know they aren't pulling any permits to have their little parades. I'm pretty sure the owner of a takeaway near our house is selling drugs. The place has only a handful of customers every night and it should have gone out of business a long time ago. Alas, it's still open and all sort of shady people gather in front of it as closing time approaches. The other shady thing happened a few months ago. One night, a neighbor was rushed at the hospital. He is 70 or 75 years old and very overweight. Everybody, his family included, thought he had a heart attack. It turned out he tried to become a sugar daddy for a 25-year-old woman, but was too cheap and didn't give enough money. so he got his butt beaten up by some of her friends. The hoe sends letters to me to edge my sidewalk, but my neighbor's jungle is okay. It doesn't matter how many times I edge it. Maybe he is sending them to the wrong person. I don't think it's going on anymore. Two of my neighbors are in a fight. I heard a rumor she once threw cake at him from her balcony. Once I caught him following her and looking where she went. Creepy. He has mental issues, but he calmed down when he got grandchildren. Now he just practices shooting in his backyard and goes around with a lamp at night. He cut down a perfect cherry tree because birds used to hang out there in the morning and chirp. Now he just practices shooting in his backyard. Oh good. There's been a police cruiser sitting in front of a known drug den on my street, coming at the same time every day and staying for exactly 2.5 hours. I have no idea if they're trying to do surveillance or just freak him out. I have no idea if they're trying to do surveillance. If they're in a police cruiser sitting in front of the house, their surveillance isn't all that subtle. I live facing into a crescent. Every morning and many evenings a 20-ish-year-old girl leaves the house at the other side of the crescent to walk to the bus. Often there is a man of about the same age waiting around the corner for her. He is often crouching under a tree, face covered. When he sees her, he jumps up and rushes to her. Often he is crying and begging and telling her that he loves her. Sometimes they argue and sometimes they talk for a long time. Sometimes he hands her a gift, like an entire book of what appears to be handwritten notes or poetry. He generally carries her backpack for her as she walks to the bus. She walks about 15 feet ahead of him. She is dating and lives with a completely different man and his parents in that crescent. I don't know who this other guy is. Personally, I'd approach her and make sure she's not being harassed or stalked, because this sounds terrifying. At least if you see him you could call the police. There's a lady that lives right across from an entrance to my neighborhood, and everyone in my neighborhood thinks she's batshit crazy because every afternoon she sits in her car in her driveway behind a giant electric fence, just waiting, and anything that comes near should expect a phone call to the police, along with stay off my dang property even if no real threat was made. Apparently she's also had a poor history with the police herself. Probably attacked a kid at some point. Growing up, when me and my neighbor would be standing outside waiting for the school bus, we'd see Mary Ann, our elderly neighbor across the street. Sometimes she'd be standing in her front window just staring daggers at us. Other times she'd be crawling around her front yard in a nightgown holding a double-barreled shotgun. Some kids are riding ATVs and dirt bikes in little packs on the streets. They're also riding in protected areas where off-roading is prohibited. The other day someone ran over a couple of people in one of these areas and killed them. Investigation is ongoing. There is a chicken plague going on. Our neighbor has high trees, and you frequently hear chicken noises from the trees. You'll see a horde of chickens cross the street when you're driving by, and sometimes you'll see literally hundreds of them in a front yard nearby. Nobody knows where they came from. There's even been a dispute between a few neighbors that made the newspapers over these chickens. Chickens do escape and form feral colonies. A small, popular, family-owned restaurant in the neighborhood shares their property with a family-owned cafe. The cafe part caught fire a few weeks ago suddenly, and the site was completely cleared of any and all debris within a day and a half, stopping the beginning police search before it could be finished. Within half a day of the fire, the restaurant workers and locals heard a rumor saying arson, but before the police could continue the search, the debris was gone. It's not like it even burned to the ground or anything. It easily looked repairable, but it is now just a flat patch of gravel, and the search is essentially over since all the evidence is gone. Kinda shady. Could have been insurance. Take the money, take any evidence, go. Maybe it fell on hard times or they needed money quick. Something similar happened in my area, Italian place that was supposedly rumors, but everyone kinda figured as much, running low on funds and burnt down conveniently, unheard of afterwards. So this all happened recently. Neighbor A and neighbor B live beside each other. Neighbor A plays music too loud one night, so neighbor B threw a brick through their window. Neighbor A then comes to the only logical conclusion out there and gets 10 of his friends together, goes to the local petrol station with a wheelie bin and fills it full of petrol. proceeds to break the living room window, insert a bin full of petrol into said living room and then throw a petrol bomb in to light it. Me and the lads were staging a poker night in my house across the street and watched it all go down. Yesterday morning around 6 AM I woke up to my neighbor screaming on their front lawn. My neighbor was out there throwing crap at her husband while her friend videotaped it all from the front door. I don't know what happened, but usually people don't get thrown out of their house at 6 AM for no reason. While her friend videotaped it all from the front door. This is the thing I'm most confused about given the context, and it being 6 AM. I just moved but I already have suspicions about the pigeon who nests above the porch. What are you up to, bird? Your chicks are fledged, so why are you still hanging around casing my house? Hey, don't fault the pigeon. It's going through a pretty big case of empty nest syndrome right now. M and more M. The miles of woods around my house are filled with roving M heads equipped with burglary tools. They also have little campsites where they live and set up shake and bake labs. Most, if not all, are wanted on warrants. They do sweeps down here occasionally to round all them up, but it's extremely hard because local law enforcement is seriously undermanned. On top of that, when they do arrest one of these people, the court immediately just lets them go and they come right back to the woods. They never show up for their court dates, so they just hang out in the woods with warrants until the process repeats itself. Our local court system is a joke. When they finally do pin one of them down, they never put them in jail. Just give them probation. It's why they're so brazen. They know they will never actually go to jail for it. My parents' house is in one of the nicest, safest, and most expensive boroughs suburbs in London, where 3 bedrooms easily sell for £1 million. One of the 1.3 million 5-bedroom houses caught on fire recently because it was being used to grow weed and the firefighters couldn't get in because the whole place was booby-trapped. That's idyllic London borough life for you. Several neighbors have shady chickens. Those little criminal bastards sometimes even come in my yard and eat my bugs, and litter their eggs around. I want this problem. Ice cream truck comes through after dark, sometimes around midnight. I don't think they're selling just ice cream. Mayo, that's both creepy and a bit hilarious. Garden competition, fighting, love triangles, stalking, sabotage, accusations, escalation, murder, speculation, trials, convictions, hydrangeas. I'd watch this show. I live in a very suburban, American dream 1950s kind of neighborhood, and the sketchiest thing that goes down there is when my neighbor doesn't say hi back. Dude, I have a couple neighbors that don't wave or say hi, and we live in the Midwest and those are the goddamn rules. I found out that the neighborhood I used to live in had someone a single street away from my parents' house get busted for human trafficking. Scary crap. There's some butthole who lives at the end of the street somewhere with a hot drug dealer car with all blacked out windows who keeps flying down the small residential road at blinding speeds, revving the engine and dang near killing some people. He knocked a mirror off a car the other day. We are positive it was him. None of us actually saw it but heard the engine and the smash. Some of the guys may go down there with pitchforks soon. Put in illegal speed bumps like Walter Whiteowl did. That would be the time my street was blocked off by police cars. A nice little police woman asked me where I lived, and when I told her she said okay, follow me, but stay behind me and stay low. She was wearing a bulletproof vest. We got halfway there when the SWAT commander stopped us and asked where she was taking me. She told him and he paused to assess the situation and decided I can't allow it. It's too close. That's when I noticed there was a team of about 6 SWAT guys in full gear with what looked like MP5s huddled behind an armored Humvee with a turret on top. My girlfriend and I ended up hanging out at the local bar for about 4 hours until the situation was resolved and we were allowed to go home. A bunch of teenagers go around the neighborhood at 3 AM looking for open cars and stealing whatever they can. It's pretty silly. Happened in my neighborhood too. The retired neighbor across the street would hide in his bushes after midnight and actually caught someone. But he knew he couldn't actually hold them there, so he sprayed them with bleach and called the cops. The cops had to tell the guy to stop because he could blind somebody. New developments are popping up around my area and there has been a very surprising rise in suspicious activity and car break-ins. but they always seem to go to houses that obviously have a Ring doorbell or camera system. Then a few days later there's a representative from a security company knocking on everyone's doors and asking if we're aware of the suspicious activity that's been happening in our neighborhood. Obviously, to me at least, the security companies set this crap up to scare people into buying their systems. No one's crap ever gets stolen in these break-ins. But then it gets creepier. My neighbor a few doors down bought a security system from these guys. Then, about a week after the security dude came out and set it up, he was in bed with his wife for the night and they heard the back door open and the alarm trip. So he starts to get dressed to investigate when the fricking system gets disarmed. The only people that knew the code in the house were him and his wife. So he goes to the top of the stairs and says, "Who's there? I have a gun and I will shoot you." And whoever was down there bolted out the back door. He came to the conclusion that the guy that helped them set up the system watched them punch in the code and then either came back himself or gave it to a person that wanted to break in. So, life lesson: never buy anything from door-to-door salesmen, especially when what they are advertising to protect you from or prevent has all of a sudden been happening around your neighborhood. That one serial killer installed security systems. Dennis Rader, the bind, torture, kill guy. The guy across the street sells drugs and is definitely a crack addict. We live in a good area too. Late at night he starts freaking out for no reason. The neighborhood I lived in when I was a child was full of hippies and eco-warrior type people, so you would frequently see shady but harmless stuff going on. But one day, one of the hippies had a German shepherd that came out of the forest with a decomposed human hand in his mouth. Police were called. Hippies avoid police like the plague unless there is a protest march, so it was a big deal, but they didn't really do anything. No searches or anything. This was many years ago and corruption was common with the police. My friends and I had a theory that that forest was being used to dispose of certain people. We had an incident last weekend. There's currently a dispute going on in my country between the dairy farmers and the large conglomerates that buy and distribute their milk. Basically it's becoming almost impossible for the farmers to turn a profit, but the conglomerates are refusing to pay more. Farmers have been dumping their milk in the gutter because that's better than selling it, etc. etc. The farmers are trying to get the government to intervene on their behalf. So far nothing has happened. Last weekend, a farmer drove his tractor down Main Street in my hometown, with a giant trailer with a tank on the back, and dumped manure onto Main Street in the process. Now everyone in town impaired said farmer because they had a smelly weekend and because the volunteer fire brigade got called up on a Sunday to clean away the manure. Sorry you guys got crap on, but I am totally for the farmers on this one. Hope your town gets it figured out. Kinda want to put a positive thing here. Last week neighborhood kids knocked on my door, told me my dog got loose and was roaming neighborhood. It was my foster dog I had for a total of 2 hours. I'm a zookeeper and I've never talked to these neighbors. There is only 2 of them that speak English and my Spanish isn't good. I knocked on their door and gave the 2 kids free tickets to the zoo for helping me with the dog. I got her back and I'm planning to adopt her. 2 days ago I got a mysterious beanie baby bear without a nose on my doorstep. Haven't figured out whether it's from them and they want me to keep it, or if I should return it and say thank you, but the bear misses them. I don't want my dogs to chew it up. My neighbor has parties every one Monday and sometimes I can see people laying face down in the front yards for like hours at a time. I think a ritual is going on and I DK how to feel about that. 3 guys moved into a small house on my road. I think that it's a 1-bedroom. They aren't there much night or day. They each have sporty cars in an area where most people own pickups and 4-wheel drives to cope with Vermont's snowy and muddy roads. They never put any trash out on trash day. It's just all weird. The old ladies have taken offense to an unsightly gravel bag and have launched a passive-aggressive campaign to get it removed. I'm in with the old ladies because I have a baby and let them hold her, so I get to hear all about it. Apparently it's a disgrace. Their plans involve passive-aggressive litter picking, general tutting and avoiding eye contact. Oh, the couple at number 20 are feeling it right now, I can tell you. I live in an old town in SC with a lot of war history. Every other night I would hear a lady screaming in the graveyard nearby, but it didn't sound like any other screaming. It wasn't strained and it sounded closer than where it was coming from. Other people from farther away heard it, said it sounded like it came from their backyard. A woman screaming. One night I was outside walking and across the cotton field I seen lights above the trees moving from heavy winds and nothing was in the sky. It was coming in my direction. I ran home so fast. Not making any of this up. I'm also from small old town SC. It's a mountain lion, bobcat, panther, whatever your dad calls it. They're native all over the state. I used to work IT for the local jail and was part of the building process, so the corruption didn't surprise me, but I was pleasantly surprised that something may happen because of it. Local town is owned by 3 families and is corrupt as heck. Well, turns out the sheriff was being investigated federally and decided to off himself once he was notified of some of what they had on him. So it's gonna be real interesting to see how the local power structure gets shifted around. While the families have huge clout locally, since we're dealing with federal charges, I doubt they have the needed pull there. My burg could actually end up getting cleaned up, which would be great. I love it here, but the corruption really was a concern for me. My neighbor's kid is home from college. Him and his buddies are up late hanging out and shooting the crap. Sometimes, when I have the windows open, I can smell it. I think those kids might be doing the marijuanas. They haven't even offered me any. I have a toddler and a baby. They go to bed by like 8. I used to be cool, I swear. Okay, not very cool, but I won't like lip all over your bowl or pretend like I'm still 19 or dab or something horrible. Please believe me, it's rude, is all I'm saying. If my neighbors asked me if they could hit my bowl, that'd be fine with me. Would also relieve the pressure of worrying about them snitching. My neighbor, mid-70s male, had a 19-year-old girl move in with him. He met her like twice at the bar. She was the bartender. The place closed down and she lost her apartment. I'm thinking she's taking advantage of him for his money. I think your neighbor may be getting something in return. They roll around in their shallow backyard pond in the summertime like basking seals. It's a father and his 3 middle-aged children. Tell us more but slower. Someone in my neighborhood got burglarized by 2 guys pretending to be workers for a water company, claiming their water is contaminated and they need to inspect it. One kept the homeowner busy while the other stole a bunch of stuff. Every once in a while an unlocked and ripped off bike is in front of my house. I always bring them to the lost and found office, but they never get picked up by the owners, and after some time they legally belong to me and I sell them for very little money. Also, there are many locked but withered bikes in the area and they seem to fluctuate, like when a new bike is there. One very demolished bike is missing. I don't know what's going on and who would leave his bike forever on a public street. There are crazy bikes here, looking like a bike for children from the 50s or one self-made Florida. Lot of BMXs last year. What confuses me most is that it's obviously no steel trade thing, since they only vanish after they are rusty shit bikes that no one would buy anymore. There's a method to this madness. The type of thief that does this is someone afoot that wants free one-way transportation. The old bike is likely not locked, so it's easy to steal. Additionally, probably nobody is roaming the streets in a car looking for it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.